Welcome, Luca Benini. Welcome to the podcast. Today's conversation, we're going to be talking again about AI, digital transformation, and the changes that are happening in the landscape that is Salesforce, but as well kind of wider digital transformation. Luca, tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, your company, and our listeners would love to know a bit more, and then we'll get into some questions.
Yes, thank you, Rory, for inviting me on your podcast. My name is Luca Benini. You said it absolutely right. I'm Italian, but I've lived in London for the past 20 odd years. I have a background in working always in technology solution. I actually also worked for a little while for Salesforce through an acquisition. We go back a long time ago, more than 10 years ago, with the first marketing cloud when it was created. It was through the acquisition of a company that I was running in Europe called Buddy Media. American company. It was a massive acquisition, and it actually propelled Salesforce into the world of marketing technology, which was a new important chapter. And then fast forward to the past 5-6 years, I've been co-founding and leading the customer-facing team here at Native Video first, and then Vinton. The company is still Native Video, and the underlying platform is still providing the native functionalities to handle video and audio in Salesforce, but our technology is built now on top of it, and it extends to AI note-taking predominantly. So we're the only AI note-taker built natively in Salesforce. We run operations out of Europe, specifically out of London here in the UK. And we have a team that is distributed across the globe, supporting our clients and engaging with Salesforce across the globe as well.
Yeah. So I think, in terms of like, there's a lot of, product companies out there, service companies as well that have jumped 2 feet into the AI world. But was it a natural transition to Vinton and the note taking from native video, and how did that emerge?
Well, a couple of, I think, inputs that we picked up along the way around 2 years ago. It was first coming from our clients that were they're starting to use our technology, bringing it, especially the recording functionalities that we provide inside their Salesforce. They were bringing that into their meetings, into their conversations, and they were recording conversations and just, creating that underlying fact. And when GPT launched, the very first chat GPT, was it October of 2 years ago, maybe a bit more?
Yeah, 2-3 years ago. Yeah.
Exactly. So when that happened, we realized immediately that we had an opportunity because it was focused on text and it was focused on elaborating text out of text. And that was exactly what our technology was designed to do, which is, capturing a media, video or audio, and transforming it through, among other things, and making it available in Salesforce also in the form of text. So we started working on that, and that proved immediately impactful for our clients. They started to increase usage, to find new ways of using it. And then soon after, Salesforce, which is probably the second biggest input that we pick up from the marketplace, Salesforce started talking and doing things with AI, launched, first was the evolution of Einstein. Einstein had been around for a while, but had never been as powerful as, that evolution that we saw a couple of years ago. And then around a year ago, transformed into Agentforce, kind of shift the whole attention towards Agentic AI. And we operate in this market. We follow, or we anticipate sometimes, the narrative and the needs of the people and the companies that operate in our ecosystem. And that's why we focused 100% of our attention on developing AI-driven solutions for business problems, of course.
Yeah, so I think a lot of our listeners will be, some of them are technical and some of them, a lot of them are not. But like, what is an agent? And I think it's thrown around in conversation a lot. But what is an agent, and what makes it a little bit different to a normal piece of software?
Well, I think the evolution is quite dramatic from algorithmic to generative and then to agentic. The world of software has always been algorithmic, with a very specific instruction, expecting very specific input, and out of that, through the instructions, creating an output. The evolution of that is with the first version, basic version of artificial intelligence, from the get-go, the parameters are different. There is no specific instruction, I should rephrase that. There is no specific input that is expected by the instruction. So the instructions are given, but the input is open in a way. I think the best example of that is a self-driving car. I drive a Tesla, and from
Of course you do, Luca.
Well, I've driven it for quite a lot of miles, actually, all across Europe. And it's impossible from an algorithmic perspective to program a car to drive itself, because what's impossible is not the instruction, is to standardize the input. What happens on a street is always different, and it's unpredictable. So the instruction cannot be specific. When this happens, do this. And when you say this, do this, because it's the unexpected, right? If you enter AI into that system, then all of a sudden you're giving instructions and you're allowing this new technology to interpret the input that it's receiving and then elaborate it and then create an output. In the case of a car is, braking, accelerating, turning, overtaking. So that's AI. Generative AI is effectively a subset of that. It's kind of the ground level of text, from text to text. So you provide an input that is in the form of text, the instructions that are also text based, and then the output is an elaborated text based on the starting point. When you move into agentic AI, you're shifting again gear, because your instructions are interpreted by the AI in a much more free way. The agent, right? So the difference is in the agent, instead of just generating something, it's actually acting. Agent has the action built in, acting on behalf of the person that gives the instruction, and freely goes around to find the best possible data and instructions and informations to answer the question that has been asked. Right? So the evolution is from a pure input, elaboration, output, which is generative AI, or the AI broadly speaking that we know, to an AI that is proactive, that actually is capable of interpreting the instruction and using its own action engine to go and find the best data to provide the best possible solution.
So this is sort of like where the sort of agentic sort of thing steps in, that these things that you're talking to are more human, are more intelligent, and they can do a whole bunch of things at the back end for the people who are using them. They can take a variety of inputs, from voice to text to photos, whatever you want, video, in the case of radar, in the case of Tesla, and they can figure out like what they're going to do after that. So, I mean, for me, it simplifies the user experience for people who are using these systems massively. Like if you think about a CRM like Salesforce, I think I said this before, but like people will very often intuitively go to the search bar at the top and start looking for stuff, and then they'll start, like a lot of people, they don't use it the way it should be. It's kind of user experience versus how an engineer built it, but it kind of lends itself to sort of non-technical people very well, and I think it will just make these systems far easier to use in the future once they're set up. That's kind of that's my experience of it. But it's easier said than done. So you're very much listening to what your clients are saying all the time. So you're listening to the feedback loop there. So what sort of bits of feedback are you getting, like even in the past 6 months, that have been useful to help you develop the next generation of your product?
Well, it's interesting because it's exactly what you're describing, which is the simplification of understanding what's going on with my business from a broad perspective, and then you scale it down to the individual departments and to the managers or the individuals that are part of it. And what they want in this simplification is a system that enables them to have the information that they need when they need it, and in the format that is easy for them to digest, and then to use it to take action and maybe have support as they take action on that information. I'll give you a very practical example, because this is very recent. Just a couple of weeks ago, we launched our first agent, as you do, on the Agent Exchange, Vinton for Agentforce. And the application of it is so pragmatic and so obvious that I think it's the best example to describe what our clients want, because we developed this for a specific client that came to us with a specific set of requirements, and because it actually captures the essence of what it means to have agentic AI working in your Salesforce. Now, the requirement was very obvious, but it's not an easy thing to answer. The requirement is from leadership in a large manufacturing organization. Can you make sure that the weekly reports, they now call them the weekly digests, have all the latest information from all the open projects that we have and all the open tickets from a pure service perspective? So there's a commercial element and a service element. When that information is updated, I want to receive it in a way that is digestible and with some suggestions for actions that make sense to take at that point for me as a leader. I mean, it's a relatively straightforward request, and I'm sure they're not the first ones that receive it, but they were ambitious enough to say, okay, so we believe we have the technology to do that. So what they developed is through, what we developed in collaboration with them, through Agentforce, an ability to feed the information from what we do, which is call AI note taking, so phone calls at their central repository for all calls that come into their call center, video calls, predominantly on the commercial side, voice notes grabbed on the fly and dropped into their CRM directly using our mobile solution or our desktop solution, and in-person meetings as well that are recorded. All of this information actually updates automatically their Salesforce. And that information is now available to Agentforce through our agent, so that when the new weekly digest is produced, that information is available and is in the right context for the agent to pick it up and to make it part of a digestible report. So in essence, up until yesterday, they received a bunch of report Excel downloads with status updates in color maybe, and a few drop-down menus describing what was going on. Now, fast forward to now, the reports they have an executive summary at the top, they have the key information in bullet point at the bottom, and then they have some tables describing more in detail the individual elements that make up the records and the information that they need to digest at that point. So I think this is an obvious agentic use case because the information varies all the time. Sometimes it's relevant, sometimes it's not relevant because there's no update to report this week. So that information will be left alone, but some other information will be actually fetched from a different part of the database and brought into the fold to create the update. So I think this is so intuitive, and it's only possible through the latest technologies, and it's something that I think the newer generations, when I look at my kids, they will grow up expecting. For us, is mesmerizing, I have to say. When I see it in action, when I look into it, when I see what our solution does, even it's just in isolation, I'm like, wow, this is incredible. It's mind blowing. It's a revolution that we're witnessing here, that we're maybe driving. What my kids feel? Well, yeah, it's obvious. I'll use AI in this, and I'll chat GPT that and all of that. So I think we're right in the middle of it. Salesforce is a driving force for the narrative and for the technology, and we have all the tools available now to make it a reality and to deliver huge impact and value.
Yeah, and I think it is absolutely I think a game changer for most companies. I think, like, just in our experience, there still is like a lot of education that we need to do, and then like trying to understand, trying to distill down the kind of the points of value, the use cases that are going to have an impact. But obviously I will say with the work that you're doing with Vinton, it is very impactful. Like, and it's kind of are these key use cases that can be deployed to clients, and they can get value for them pretty much straight away. And I think in particular, I think that like a really important thing here is like trust and in the technology. And I think building on that Salesforce stack in terms of what it does, I think really gives a lot of confidence, especially to regulated industries like financial services and that sort of thing. So I think it's a really good place to be, in terms of, B2B solutions. So, but like you're right, we're only at the beginning of this thing. And, we use, a lot of AI internally in Navirum across. We're a big data company. We have a lot of data on projects, historical data, data on our clients, marketing data, and same with a lot of companies. But it really is allowing us to get to grips with that, horizontally, vertically, in three dimensions, like to kind of really get unique insights into how the company is performing. And all of our team are benefiting from it, like we use it in a secure way. But it's now about educating our clients in terms of how they should be using it as well. But you did mention at the beginning of this the importance of data in this whole transformation. Just so data is a very broad word, but let's discuss that a little bit and what companies can do to prepare themselves for this sort of transformation.
Well, I think you are, in what you just said, there's a great example of how data becomes even more important. You and I have been in the Salesforce ecosystem for a few years, so we have learned and we've heard before how important is centralizing data or having a context that relates all the data that relate to a company. You just mentioned that, you sit as Navirum, you've run a lot of projects, you've run campaigns to attract clients, you've run programs to engage with Salesforce, you've run training and upskilling programs internally and with your clients. All of that is by virtue of your discipline and your understanding of the bigger picture, you've captured in your Salesforce. Now that data, up until yesterday, you've probably used it individually, and you've gone in and said, let's look at what type of campaign worked before, and okay, let's devise a next campaign, or let's look at what approach for a project has delivered the best results, and then you use it. Now with AI, as you just said, the importance of data, it's multiplying its effect, because AI can actually look at the whole context, the broader view of all the data across all the departments in your organization, and create those connections that it would take you and I and all the analysts in the office weeks to make those connections. The little campaign that mentioned that specific element in the value proposition reflects in the success of a project and the happiness of a person that doesn't leave, and Salesforce calling you into another event. And all of this is those connections are there. The data has that truth in it, but it's just a matter of going to analyze it. So it becomes even more important than before to have that unified data approach. What's a little less important is full contextualization or full detail. The beauty of AI, which is I think the positive element of what AI brings to the table, is that it requires a little less discipline. You don't need necessarily to always have the right drop-down menu to identify that particular status of it. You don't need to have because AI will be able to interpret that so long as the information is there, and so long as the information is contextualized, at least from a presence perspective, from a interconnection perspective with the rest of the data. And I think that's where the importance of data, and that's why solutions like what you're building, the centrality of data, especially in highly regulated companies, right? So enabling the AI to work at best because it has access to the broader spectrum of the information that comes across the organization. With our solution, your clients centralize all their conversations, and they have automated updates from every single meeting. With other solutions, they centralize in a single point, and with the right context, all their billing information, all their trading information, if it's financial institutions, and that is it was of importance before. It's the key to success going forward, and it will create a competitive advantage today or a competitive disadvantage for those that don't embrace it today.
Yeah, no, you really have you've just got me thinking there about it, and the importance of, centralizing the data. I think it really is a big advantage, to have a CRM and to be able to have everything connected in there, and then have the agentic layer on top of it. So you can pull in we, use a lot of systems, from our accounting systems we use Jira extensively for project management and delivery. Absolutely tons of data in there. So you have the ability to bring everything in and have, I was just discussing the value of having unique identifiers across the data sets for your customers. It can interpret it, but I think it, in terms of deterministic, non-deterministic, output, it can be more confident in itself if you're able to kind of uniquely identify the data sets and the customer across the board. So I would recommend that, but it can figure things out. It's just your degree of confidence in what it's doing is increased by connecting the data sets across the,
What
the
you
different
just said,
systems. Yeah.
I think another thing that is out there in our ecosystem is data cloud, and I believe a lot of customers are struggling, and maybe some partners as well are struggling to understand the relevance of data cloud, and it sits exactly in what you said. Most companies use multiple databases that hold very important information that are connected to what's in their CRM, and they are connected in what's in their conversations with clients in the operations of their business. Now, Salesforce has recognized the importance of bringing that information back into the fold and exposing it to the Agentic AI, to their Agentic AI, and therefore has dropped the previous narrative, which was always, we can do Jira, drop Jira by Service Cloud and have a ticket instead of the Jira ticket. Today, they don't go out. They recognize that it's more important for them to have access to the data than to actually sell a couple more licenses. Having people to drop their other systems and unify everything in Salesforce. So whatever they cannot sell as a license, they will say, I still want to have access to it because I still want to provide you with an agentic AI solution that actually spans beyond your CRM and into all the other systems that you use. And it's rather system agnostic in a way, and that's the importance of and why there's so much emphasis in our ecosystem on data cloud, because the importance of data is evidenced by everything that we do in AI. The success of Agentforce, Agentic AI, all AI programs depends on access to sets of data that are relevant to find the right information, to take the right action.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's like a lot of these things, like it's about product market fit, like in things like data cloud. It was introduced, and discussed this in kind of my last podcast around kind of timing and stuff. And I think like things like data cloud will, it's only really emerging now, the importance of it, like, and being able to bring all that information together and have the connected to different LLMs and stuff like that to interpret it. But I think if anybody who's starting out like on an AI journey, I think like there's a lot of things we've discussed here, quite technical, but like where should they start? Like even with this, do you think like where's a good place to begin? Like I guess in a B2B context, because most people are using ChatGPT in some capacity, or Claude or whatever it might be. But where should they start in their business?
Well, ChatGPT has and is educating people that they can ask a question, and given the right set of information, they can get an answer. Now, that is a very good starting point of frame of mind to think about how Agentforce at the very ground level will operate or can operate within their Salesforce. And as companies and people with their business operations, they start to use that, they start to think, okay, so I may have some automated actions, so I don't have to ask the same questions every time, but the question is asked and answered, and I find the answer where I need it, right? Starting point. Second thing is they start to ask questions inside their CRM, and CRM doesn't have the information that are needed. That's when, as they evolve in this journey, they typically find us or a solution like ours, because maybe they have experimented with Copilot, on their Teams call. So they have a Teams call, they hang up, and then all of a sudden they have a beautiful summary. The full transcript, the summary, maybe some next steps that are pre-programmed into their Copilot. And then, and they've been using that for a while. And then they start to copy paste because they say, that's where I need the information. And then the next step will be, well, isn't there something that actually can do this, but directly inside my Salesforce? And then they have all the conversations, from Teams conversation to in-person to phone calls. They have all of that in their Salesforce. And then they take the next step and they say, okay, wow, I wish I had all the transactions that are happening in another system, so that, coming back to the questions that I'm asking my GPT, chat GPT like experience, those answers can also extend not only to conversational data, to my CRM data, but also to transactional data. And that's how I think that journey should evolve. I think companies should start, and what we see is that they do actually start with asking business related questions. They can only answer with access to the right data. And that's how that journey starts. And then all of a sudden it becomes agentic without them knowing, because that data, so long as it's exposed, the agent will find it, and they proactively will go out and find the information and bring it back. They will realize that they need more data sources to answer the same questions, rather than having different questions to ask. And I think this is what will make a difference. Manufacturing companies managing their inventory, switching from checking an Excel all the time and then picking up the phone to providers and suppliers, and then picking up the other phone and calling into the warehouse because maybe something just arrived, is not yet in. Stop that. Take a step back, ask that question. What is the question? Are we managing our supply chain? And delegate that, because all the systems are now talking to each other, and you have an agent or a little army of agents that actually goes out and answers that particular question. So that's, I think, the natural evolution. And it could actually start from your GPT. And what would you ask if you had a GPT that knew everything about your company operations?
Yeah, yeah. No, I think that's a really, really good point. I think it is like you kind of, the more data you expose to these things, the more questions you can ask, and the bigger the kind of the sphere of value becomes, like for businesses. And you kind of go down the rabbit hole of, like, asking all sorts of questions and trying to infer stuff. So, but like, it is like, I think we'll come back to my original point about kind of distilling it down to points of value. I think that's the thing about this thing, is that it can become this huge distraction, and you're getting these insights into things that are not necessarily that valuable, and it's all very experimental and stuff like that. So, but I think, like, people still have businesses to run, and so I think that, like, what we're trying to do is just say, look, here's 4 or 5 things you should use it for, and here's 95 other things you can do at the weekend or when you've got spare time. And I think that's how we're trying to approach it, because it can do so much. And there's so much AI now. It feels like every single app, like, has an AI, an agent associated with it. Like, and even these financial systems that we're connecting into, they've got some sort of an agent. And so I think the natural progression there is, like, this agent to agent communication that will eventually sort of start to happen a lot more. So that's going to introduce some.
Well, if you have the conversation of value, I believe the underlying parameters of value in a technology solution have not changed. I remember quite a few years ago, my good friend Galvin, now he's a friend, he was a sales trainer for my team, and he said something that has been true forever for me, which is companies buy technology for a combination of 3 reasons. You know that training where you're trained to ask, okay, so what, or why, right? So the 3 whys and all of that, right? So what it boils down to is either they buy technology to save some money, so there's an efficiency lever, or to make more money, so an effectiveness layer, or to de-risk their operations, so to lower their exposure to risk. So these are the only 3 reasons, but always a combination of these 3 reasons why people would buy any technology across the world. So just going back to the training, that the focus was then, how do you reconcile what you do and all the whys that you ask to get to a point where you're unlocking this value and you're making it obvious through your technology? If you take that and you bring it into what is happening around us and how people are using the technology that we have available with Agentic AI, the first is probably the quick win, the obvious one: efficiency, saving time. Hey, help me understand, find my answer, write my next email, I summarize my call, update my Salesforce. Easy, right? Second is, how do I make more money? Right? So I'm saving money. I'm saving, through saving time and being more useful with my time. That actually immediately translates into, okay, so I can do more quality work. And ideally, and that's the medium term, right? I'm doing more quality work. I'm pushing the boundaries of what I can do with my time the intelligence that I can bring to work every day, because I have intelligent beings working alongside me. So I'm unlocking more value and delivering more revenue to my company. And the third element of de-risking, I think, is the kind of the layer at the very top that encompasses everything. Because all of a sudden you have agents, or you can have agents that intelligently and proactively look for your gaps. They look for your compliance issues, for instance, the ones that are not surfaced or that wouldn't be surfaced, or that you're reluctant to surface yourself. I'm thinking, some manager with their team, and what is going on, and how it's happening, and how proactive they are with everything that they need to manage, as well as systems and their vulnerabilities, and how data flows across the organization. But risk is much bigger than that for a company, right? So it's not just the data, and it has to do with the people, it has to do with the system, it has to do with the environment in which they operate. All of that is part of where we're going, right? So there are immediate quick wins are evident to all of us. The medium-term impact on quality of work, and therefore impact on revenue and delivery. And I think there's an overarching layer that helps, especially at the leadership level, understand and prevent risk, and understand and manage much better their operations, therefore.
Yeah, like I think I completely agree. It's kind of going from that sort of reactive to proactive, and sort of like thoughtful AI and compassionate AI. There's a lot of phrases thrown around that we can see being used, but like, I can certainly see, a future very quickly emerging where it's prompting you and it's getting insights, it's looking at reports proactively, it's saying this hasn't happened, that hasn't happened, like a really kind of good executive assistant sort of chasing you around the place and asking you to sign things and approve things. I think that is going to be very, very useful for certainly anybody working, but certainly anybody running a business. I think, and we're dealing with a lot of people who run businesses every day. Super helpful. But I do want to kind of bring things back to Agentforce itself. I was in New York, where we're in July 4th. Happy 4th of July to our US customers and community. In May, I was in New York. In last month, June, I was in Toronto at the Agentforce, and there's it's the beating of the drum around AI is just becoming louder and louder, and there's more and more AI. There's less and less mentions of things like CRMs and ERPs. It's like agentic systems that people are using, and the actions which like produce these outcomes for using things like Agentforce are a lot. There's more of them. Like, especially we work with financial services, so the financial services cloud has a whole host of different ones, from client summaries to reports around like the net worth of an individual, and asset distribution breakdowns and all sorts of stuff, all very specific to getting outcomes and insights into their clients. But like, you're tied into that world, and you're sort of like trying to add value on top of this. What was the CRM is now this agentic layer. Has that been a challenge? Has that been, have you found that experience, and how's it going?
I think it's not been a challenge. It's interestingly refreshing in a way, just because from purely an egoistic perspective, from our perspective, our solution is centered around pushing more data with the very kind of simplest layer, without a lot of context, or without I should say with a lot of context, but without a lot of structure. Because it's typically conversations that we're capturing for our clients, and pushing that back into the CRM, and exposing it and making it available to an AI that will be able to interpret, that will be able to read in less than 1 second, a whole hour of conversation, and understand what are the key important points, and how to answer the specific questions, from summarization for my boss to coaching for me, to sentiment analysis and key themes overall, to create that digest that we were discussing earlier. So I think that journey is a fun one for us and for our clients. And I think Salesforce is doing the right thing. I've heard some criticism regarding buzzwords, and also somehow the reality that they paint, they being Salesforce, that they paint on stage through their demo. Their demos being always shiny, ambitious, and somehow you want that. You want whatever is happening on that screen. You want, wow, I really want that. And then, the criticism is, well,
there's always a safe harbor up there as well. They've got their safe harbor statement
for a reason.
Yeah.
But, and people are like, well, that's really not the reality for most of my clients, for instance, they're not there. But I think it's the right thing for Salesforce. And it's always been like that they push the
Hmm.
boundaries. They paint a picture of what
Yeah. Oh,
the art
yeah.
of the possible looks like.
Method. But like I always feel that Salesforce is really embedded in the DNA of Silicon Valley and the real epicenter of software. Like that's the way I see it. Like, and I see, like, I always get that sense when I'm in San Francisco and work with the executives that a lot of them have that heritage. So all of that, the way they do things is no different to other companies, that have been born out of there, like whether it's, Oracle or, and many, many others like,
I think it's not a lot of companies that have embraced it. But as I mentioned, I think Salesforce is doing the right thing as painting the future and
yeah.
kind of drafting what it should and could look like. Right? Salesforce is Silicon Valley. They're at the heart of where technology is born, and they are exposed every day to bigger, bolder visions. And I think they are helping companies stay ahead of the curve, and that's
Oh, yeah, yeah.
absolutely their job. And then it's our job, yours and I, to take that vision and make it possible step by step. The work that you do with your clients, you go back to the drawing board and you explain to them how and what the journey, what the transformation will look like to obtain what was on stage and what was in that demo. And it's our job as ISVs, and especially as a native solution in Salesforce, to keep up with that technology, use it to take it again down one notch and say, okay, so what's the practical connection that I can make with my solution, with this new technology, and deliver value today, not in a possible, ideal future, but really today. Because you and I, we talk to clients today, and we need to sell today's technology and deliver solving today's problems, and that's so again, I absolutely think that Salesforce is doing the right thing, is again leading from the front, and they shouldn't be doing anything different, and is our responsibility to embrace that vision and make it achievable at the scale at which we operate with our clients very pragmatically every day.
Yeah. So, I think that's, I think that, like, coupled with your kind of your client centric approach to building out your product, like, I think just means that, like, you're always going to sort of be ahead, of the game in terms of what you're offering. And I know that, like, I noticed a few weeks ago that I think it was the summer release, was it, for Salesforce? The latest set of functionality that you brought out a whole host of new things for Vinton, which is great to see. And presumably all based on client feedback and alignment with Agentforce as well. So yeah, that's really great to see. But I think that, like, one question I do have about Vinton is around, like, I know that, like, when you look at it, it's your alignment with the ecosystem, I think, is just really clever. Like, it's not just we're an agent that you install. It's like Salesforce, you can integrate it with telephony systems and, different data storage solutions. And, is that something that you always had with native video, or something that emerged? Or because the importance of fitting in with the ecosystem and being cohesive with the ecosystem, I think, has been very important.
Yeah, well, it's a good question. Actually, it goes back to the roots of our solution, and we were born as a native video, and the name is exactly what the solution was, and still our platform is, right. So we saw a gap that, and we saw clients that wanted that gap to be filled and to be bridged, and we developed a solution that brought video and audio solutions, so media solutions, natively inside Salesforce. What it means is, the reverse. Without our solution, handling video is very clunky in Salesforce. It's a large file, and Salesforce is not designed to handle very well large files. Cannot be played back. They cannot be handled easily. It's impossible to read them. You need to download them and kind of play them back on a different system, and somehow it's different. As soon as the browser technology, which is where Salesforce lives, always lives in a browser. As soon as the browser technology kept up and started to be able to handle video, we saw the opportunity to bring video and audio events inside Salesforce, and that's exactly what we developed first, right? From there started a journey that saw us go from a horizontal solution. Hey, do you need video or audio solutions? And we had a number of solutions out there that we built as extension of the platform, from video messages to video interviews to video training. There's a number of applications that our platform was useful for, and it was a bit more of as I said, an horizontal platform that we were adapting to deliver on specific needs for specific projects. And then the shift really came with Vinton, where we saw the opportunity to add that layer on top. Not only that, the opportunity to use all the technology that we had built to bring back into Salesforce a lot more data, a lot more useful information in the context of the rest of the CRM. And this was the turning point for us. And, kind of that's where we started really to accelerate as a business.
Yeah. So it was a sort of a natural progression from your I guess your big data, video and audio roots. So I think it's a big advantage. Some people are trying to do it the other way around. I think we've covered a lot of ground there today in terms of the conversation. And where can people find you other than live streaming on LinkedIn every day?
They can definitely can find me on LinkedIn. Yeah. But probably easier just to Google Vinton, Vinton. That's the name of our solution, and maybe pair it with Salesforce just for to be sure. We are the AI note taker, and then Salesforce. They will definitely find us. And if they search on ChatGPT, they will also be pointed in the right direction. That's another thing that we're seeing, right? In the referrals that you receive, or
or in the Google Analytics, even on your website or whatever, you'll see the source is more and more AI driven, which is interesting. But really appreciate the conversation. We'll follow with some of the conversation points in the notes, how to contact you and reach out. And we hope to have you back on again sometime in the future.
For sure. Thank you for having me, Rory. It was good to have this conversation with you, and let's make our partnership even more relevant for our clients going forward.
Okay. Grazie mille.
Grazie mille. Bye-bye.